Good morning, everyone. My name is Marva. I'll be your facilitator for this discussion. Um, I'm going to read the rules, rather go over the rules. Um, After the majority of the folks um, have appeared on the screen, we're going to introduce ourselves after I go over the rules. Um, Racism is the slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person-to-person communications to show that we are committed to treating fellow human beings of all colors with love and respect. Join us. We're going to have a introduction of our themselves, the participants, after I finish going over the rules. Raise one finger if you want to be put on the list. Wave it kind of slowly across the screen. Um, Two fingers if you have a question with a question for the person that has the floor. Um, a question meaning if you don't understand something, if it's not clear to you, um, you can say, will you explain what you said in your statement? Or if you disagree with the person, it's not a debate. Um, get on the list. Raise one finger and get on the list. Um, each of you will have, uh, being called from the list, you'll have 2 minutes to speak, and two clarifying questions uh, for the person that has just finished their statement. And at the wrap up, at the end of the discussion, those that have not spoken will get a 2 full minutes. Other than that, you have 1 minute for the wrap up. Turn all your phones off, and mute yourself if you're not speaking. Um, 15 minutes before uh, the wrap up, before the discussion ends, we'll have the wrap up. Okay, this is the atmosphere of safety. We do not allow personal attacks. Okay, did I cover everything?
I think so.
Okay. Like I said, my name is Marva. I've been attending Erace. Oh, should I say why I chose this topic?
No, but I think you were going to have us introduce ourselves.
Okay. Starting with Phyllis.
Hi, I'm Phyllis. And Marva asked me to be keeping the time. So if you can't hear my phone go off, I'm going to do this to let you know. So.
Okay. Next is Louise.
Hi, I'm Louise. Been coming to Erace on and off for over a couple of decades. I love it.
Nancy.
Good morning. My name's Nancy. I've been coming to Erace since 2007.
Kate.
Hi, I'm Kate. This is my first year with Erace, and I'm learning lots of new stuff. and I'm located in Northern Kentucky, right outside of Cincinnati.
Pedro?
Yeah, hi. Good morning, everybody. I've been coming to Erace since I think it was late summer. So it's almost a year, and really enjoy the education and reflections that everybody brings to the table each week. So thank you.
Mary?
Did you say my name, Marva?
Yes.
Oh,
Forgive me because my speech is a little slurred.
no,
It
no
comes
excuse.
in-
No excuses, Marva. It's not you. It's me. It's my left ear is blocked. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. My name is Mary, and I've been coming to the race discussion since 1993. Good to see everybody this morning.
Rebecca?
Good morning. I'm very glad to be here. I'm live in Boston, so I really love it that this is a Zoom meeting, but I realize that it may change. I've been coming for 2 years.
Not if our mayor has anything to do with it. Beatrice?
Good morning, I'm Beatrice. I've been coming to Erace since probably 94 when I lived at home. I'm in East Point, Georgia now, and I'm a proud graduate of McDonough No. 6 Elementary School with Marion Lagarde about 100 years ago. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Morning, everybody.
Marla?
Hey, good morning. My name is Marla Burke. I've been coming to Erace since, I guess, about a year now, maybe. And I'm just happy to be here.
Francine? Francis?
Hi, I'm Francie. I'm in Austin, and I've been part of this group for maybe approaching a year. And I've enjoyed listening mostly.
Glenn?
Glenn Abdullah. I've been coming to Erace since 1994, and look forward to the meeting today.
Greer?
My name is Greer. I've been coming to Erace since 2008, post Katrina.
I'm going to tell why I chose this topic. My daughter and I live together, and she suggested the topic because while I was looking for something different and something educational, at the same time, I'm impressed what facts I didn't know about Black history. And I'm always eager to learn. That's why I'm so appreciative of the group Erace discussions. I chose this topic because I was not aware of this Black history. And it seems calculated in pre-planned destruction of Black communities and churches and cemeteries, along with Black lives. Even in St. Bernard Parish, where I'm located near there, I had no idea the Shellmat battlefield, and they have a celebration, but I thought it was always with the war. And I learned from Beverly Collins. She's upset that she's not here today. She's attending a funeral, Beverly, when I told her what I was doing, the topic on, she said, remember, I brought that up about uh, uh, Van Zandt town. Uh, it's buried in the Chalmette battlefield, and it was founded uh, by a free man of color, and it was founded in 1867. Uh, he inherited this land. It was through succession. Jean Pierre Van Zandt, and uh, he he established a Black community, was thriving and did well. And in latest 1966, by consolidation of federal, U.S. federal park and land, it became the official Chalmette National Battlefield. Okay, the list is open. And to get you started, I was surprised of the literature my daughter turned into me uh, about the drowned towns, which is the name of our topics. They excavated, uh, I don't know how to explain it, but they took the tractors and dug a bed of land, and they flooded it. They flooded the cemeteries, they flooded the people homes, and people that died for a living. Uh, they are discovering towns on the lakes, and there are cemetery stones, headstones, and there are complete structures of towns underneath the lakes. The list is now open. Okay, I see you, Francis, Beatrice,
And Greer.
Greer. Okay, Francis.
Well, all I wanted to say was when I was a kid in about 51, a dam was built near my hometown, and my family was able to get build a cabin on that lake, and I hung out in the woods and stuff, and there were remnants of houses around the property where our cabin was. And I remember in the area, and there was an old stove of some kind that got left behind. And this is the first time I've thought in a while, but I wonder who those people were who were displaced by that lake. And now I'm really curious to know what little village or what town was covered up. Of course, when I was in grade school, I didn't even hear it, but interesting that this topic, think of, now I go back and see if I can figure out what little town that was, or village, or farm, and so it was an interesting article, brief but interesting.
What what is the name of the lake?
The lake was Gibson, and it's outside of Muskogee. It's 5 lakes around Muskogee. The eastern part of Oklahoma is covered in lakes. And the latest one that was built in Oklahoma was Eufaula. And if you drive from us up to Arkansas or Missouri and you go across Eufaula, you think you'll never get it.
Thank you. You froze, your screen is frozen. Okay, next on the list is Beatrice, followed by Greer.
Just wanted to say that I did not know anything about these towns, anything about this having happened. You just see a lake and there's a lake. Lake Lanier, people talk about Lake Lanier here in Georgia all the time because it's a big recreational spot. And you just hear a lot about people going there to do the kinds of things you do on water. It never dawned upon me that anything like this had occurred. And this is really a perfect example of drowned history. The towns that, you have to wonder what happened, what conversations, if any, were had with people that were presently living there. What about the ancestors of the people that were buried? Were they just washed away and nobody cared? That's why I think it's so encouraging, at least in Tulsa, where people are trying to dig the graves from the people that were killed during the massacre and trying to give some honor to people who are worthy and have no one to speak. They cannot speak for themselves, obviously. But just my main comment is I had no idea that this kind of thing had occurred. But unfortunately, knowing how some people who are marginalized, particularly African Americans, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Hurt, concerned, informed, but not surprised. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Greer, followed by Phyllis.
I sent a link to everybody. There was a video by Amber Ruffin that told you a lot of towns and about what was going on. And like one of the things she said, she'd grown up in New York, been living there a long time, and she was shocked that Central Park, the reservoir, was a Black town called Yorkville. They flooded that town. And when those people moved from Yorkville, they went to Seneca Village. Eventually, they bulldozed everything there to make Central Park. So Central Park and the Central Park Reservoir are Black towns that they just said, hey, we don't want you here, and this is what we're doing. So how many, if it happened, so how many more times that this happened all over the United States? You guys can check out, I sent the link to you in chat, so you can check out the video if you would like. Thank you.
Thank you, Greer. Phyllis, followed by Pedro, and then Louise.
And Rebecca has her finger up.
Phyllis, you have the floor.
Okay. So I think Michelle and I have both mentioned we're reading How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith, and he has a chapter on New York City, and he talks about Seneca Village, which I never heard about till I read his book. I didn't know that had happened. And it just sort of reminds us all, I think, to not cast the North as morally superior in terms of racism and enslaving people. He talks about how many enslaved people were in New York City at certain times. And I think the North, because that's where I'm from, likes to think that we're superior and in terms of all these issues, and definitely we are not. And I'm glad that there are monuments or placards up in Central Park now that talk about what was there before, to let people know about that history. And I also want to say I posted a video on my personal Facebook page a while ago about the cemeteries that are along in the river parishes. They're Black cemeteries that sometimes only get found when a refinery or a factory is going to be built. So this is the area that is known as Cancer Alley. And so that's something happened right here in Louisiana where these things just they disappear into the land. Literally, there might be a tree that marks that there was a grave, just maybe even one grave there. So it's a good video. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Pedro, followed by Louise and Rebecca. Pedro, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Phyllis, if you could put in the chat box that Cancer Alley. I don't know if you said there was a video or something.
I'll try to find it.
Yeah, thank you. No, I just wanted to comment that, where I grew up many years ago, it was the other side of the railroad tracks that African Americans resided, obviously. And then, you think about highways going through neighborhoods and the disenfranchised and predominantly black neighborhoods being the ones that are closest to these types of interventions or whatever you want to call that, or whether a railroad's going to go through there or that type of thing. And it just seemed like this lake deal, it's just such an indignity to marginalized folks. It just, I never even, it just makes sense because a lot of these lakes, I guess, are man-made and they got to put them somewhere. And so where are you going to put them in a white neighborhood? Probably not. So just these different manifestations of systemic racism that I was never aware of. I appreciate the article. So thank you. That's all I had to say.
Okay, thank you, Pedro. Louise, followed by Rebecca.
So I did know about the city park, the Central Park settlement, and I can't remember where I read it, but it was in one of the many things I've been reading over the past few years. And the lakes I didn't know about, and white man has really just found many ways to keep the black man down and out and away from rising, and that's a really horrible way of doing it. Not that any of them are nice, but that's just like a real blatant you're out. And the dichotomy of people now resting around the shoreline enjoying themselves, is such a horrible picture in my mind. It's so sad. We live in such a sad world. But also don't forget that, the genocide happened to the native people of America, and God knows what all is built on top of their sacred places. And, we did have almost complete annihilation there of a peoples. So your house might be built on something that was very sacred to an indigenous person. Who knows? It's never ending. That's it.
Thank you, Louise. Rebecca and Elizabeth Copeland after Rebecca.
Marva, will you keep the time? I'm going to mute myself so I can go look for that video and it doesn't start playing.
Okay. I see you, Marion. And who else has their hand up? Kate. Okay. Rebecca.
This is definitely. Okay. This is definitely a pretty terrible part of
Nancy.
Nancy. Okay.
Should I speak?
Yes.
Okay. This is a terrible part of our history and it's very depressing. There's no doubt about that. And to add to what we've already talked about, this also took the vote away from people because at the time, many of these lakes were gouged out. They gouged out land that was owned by people of color or indigenous people. And so they then couldn't vote because they had to go rent a place. If you didn't own land, you couldn't vote for a certain part of our history. So it's really extremely sad.
Thank you, Rebecca. Marion, followed by Kate and then Nancy.
There is a section here in New Orleans that those of us that live in the New Orleans area, North Claiborne, at North Claiborne overpass, wiped out many Black businesses years ago, because I remember my dad would take my younger sister and brother and me to our uncle, who ironically lived on Flood Street. And people thriving along that just dozens of Black business. And when brouhaha about people, Black people not, well, there was a thriving business community in those days, but they were wiped out. Interstate going through the stores, business. Of tears that I'm sure all of us have heard of. The 5 civilized from the journey.
Marion, your screen is frozen. Okay.
Marva, I'm back and can take time again.
Okay. That was Marion. Kate is next and followed by Nancy, and the list is open.
Rebecca kind of covered what I wanted to say. New York State, and this is regarding Seneca. A New York State Constitution of 1821 required African-American males to own $250 in property to qualify for the right to vote. They also had to prove that they paid taxes and lived in the state for 3 years. The state constitution gradually eliminated this requirement for white males. So it wasn't just the fact that they took the land; they took these people's political power as well. I think it would. And then you got to remember too the generational thing where you pass down wealth. All of that was gone in one fell swoop, and I think it was on purpose. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Nancy?
I think Pedro has a clarifying question.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to, what year was that you were speaking to, please?
The Constitution was 1821. New York Constitution, New State.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Nancy, you have the floor.
Oh, Marion, do you have a clarifying question?
I just wanted to say this, the screen went blank. I lost the feed, so I don't know where I was in my conversation. I heard Marva say that my screen was frozen and then my screen went blank. That's all. I'm sorry.
Okay. Nancy, you have the floor.
Oh, I just wanted to say that, when was it? In 2014, I think, I took my grandson to Central Park and I took him to that reservoir, that they flooded, they used to make up Central Park, and that, the little plaque, I mean, it's not like they made a big deal out of this being Seneca Village. This little plaque is, I mean, it's small. it is not, there's no fanfare about it. It's just a little plaque that says, this was the site of Seneca Village. Doesn't really go into the history or anything of what happened to create Central Park. It just says this is the site of Seneca Village around. So you wouldn't think of anything. It doesn't really say that, historically this was, where it doesn't say any of that. It doesn't give any real history. It just says it is the site of. So I really didn't think anything of it until this article came out and I realized, oh, that's what this was. That's what this was about. Yes, Beatrice.
Oh, just wanted to be sure, they don't even mention that it was an African-American city, or, I mean, it just says that
This is the site of Seneca Village. All right, yeah.
That's it?
That's it. There's
I have
no fanfare. Yes, ma'am.
What is the actual measurement of the plaque? Is it bigger than a shoebox?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not good at measurements, just like I'm not good at heights. I'm terrible when it comes to people's heights.
Thank you.
But it's not big at all. It just, there's I don't know, maybe 2 by 3 foot. I'm not sure, but it's small. It's nothing that you would take, take
Okay.
notice of.
Thank you, Nancy.
All right.
Okay, Rebecca, I've added you to the list, and the list is okay. I see you, Marla and Marion. Okay, Rebecca, you have the floor.
Okay, I just wanted to mention our town sort of plaque is an Indian handing over to a white person our whole town of Nahant, which is a little point sort of in the ocean. And I've forgotten exactly what the exchange is, but it's something like, I'm giving you a piece of clothing and you're giving me this piece of land, which is now Nahant. So I think it was kind of a tradition to just take property and for white people and make it your own. If that's a symbol of what's going on.
Unfair trade. Thank you, Rebecca. We have Marla followed by Marion.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I was kind of thinking along the same lines as Nancy regarding my experience in New York. I was there probably around the same time, I want to say 2016 or maybe 2015. And I went on a tour with a guide through Central Park, and there was absolutely no mention of any of this. And I don't even honestly recall that we even passed by where the little plaque was, and so forth. So kind of interesting. I mean, I knew based on some other information I'd read that this had happened, but this was long after I was actually in New York City. And then I also just in listening to Phyllis's comment about how Northerners would think that we're like so much better than sometimes than the South because, we didn't do slavery like that. Growing up in Kansas, I would say the South was very vilified in that way. We were taught in our history classes and so forth that, the North was always the good side. The North always did the right thing. And the South was this terrible, evil, they were horrible people like the Robert E. Lees and so forth. All the folks who owned slaves and so forth. And we were brought up, I mean, I really literally believed that we were in a separate part of the country. And, you know, living in the South now, I have a completely different perspective, obviously, and certainly lots of growth over the last 10 or 15 years of just learning various things and joining groups like this. But wow, I mean, it's gotten me thinking a lot in light of all the conversation regarding critical race theory too, and how we need our kids to know the truth about everything and how critical it is for white folks to know how to talk to their kids about racism also. Absolute. And then,
Oh, sorry, that was your time.
that's it, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Moa. Mary is next.
Beatrice's finger is up.
Okay. Mary, you have the floor.
You have to unmute.
Pass,
You keep unmuting yourself. Okay,
We
you're
can hear
unmuted.
you now.
okay, I said I'm going to pass because I keep losing the screen and it's throwing me off. I don't even know if I got my comment out the last time.
Okay.
You said the screen was frozen?
Yes.
Okay, so you didn't hear any of the remarks?
You was in and out. It seemed to be working. I see your finger, Glenn.
I'll pass.
Okay. Beatrice, you have the floor.
I
And
just want,
followed by Glenn.
just wanted to quickly say that the example of having created the North as a great place shows that people were not taught actual history at all, because where did the cotton go that was being picked in the South, but to the textile mills in the North? So just a quick comment that any little piece that is left out of history denies people the opportunity to understand the whole truth. You know, if you demonize the South because of slavery and what was going on with slavery, what happened to the cotton that was picked? Otherwise, they haven't gone to England. But what happened? Where did the textile mills get the cotton from? Where did the banking industry begin in the North to begin to develop the basis for the wealth? I mean, Lehman Brothers. We deny people an opportunity to create a whole piece because we leave out what they think is bad, and demonize people and allow people to glorify themselves like the North was. So I just, it's just again, an example of us not doing a good job of teaching history. That's all, thanks.
Thank you, Beatrice. Have Glenn followed by Louise and Phyllis. Glenn, you have the floor.
Yeah, yeah, Beatrice is correct. You know, the North financially gained a lot from what the South was doing, and especially with the cotton. And it's the North that had the ships that exported the cotton to Europe. But now about the graveyard being flooded for the lake, you know, things like this happen, and it didn't just happen to African Americans. I remember the Tennessee Valley Authority, how they built a dam, and all the people's land was flooded for that Tennessee Valley Authority, and in Saint Bernard Parish, the white people down there would, you know, how they were treated. You know, far as flooding is concerned, New Orleans was protected, but and to whenever New Orleans was threatened to be flooded, they will let the water go into Saint Bernard Parish. So it's, you know, but we are more victimized because we don't have we are not uh, we're not established like other races are established. And the Irish were treated horribly, but once they became established in America, then they were no longer treated like less than African Americans. So our problem is that we are choosing not to establish ourselves. And that's why we will always be the victims.
I have a clarifying question from Nancy and Marion. Nancy?
Glenn, don't you feel that this article shows that even though we establish ourselves in neighborhoods, there are government sanctioned actions that strip us of our wealth and the attempts that we make to establish ourselves in this country. Doesn't this article prove that? And not just in this instance, I mean, in several instances all over the country, the flooding of the village, the running I-10 down Claiborne Avenue, running 280 through from Newark to out to the suburbs in New Jersey. I mean, that happened all over the country. Does what?
You know, no, I can't see that. I can't see using that as an excuse. You know, the I-10 did not affect me from going to those businesses. I used to walk from where to go and support those businesses that were in that area. It was, but what happened, why I stopped supporting those businesses, it wasn't the I-10, is when integration came and I was able to go to the white establishment. That's when I started spending my money with the white establishment. It was not the Interstate 10 that caused the problem.
Okay, okay, Marion, you have a clarifying question?
Yes, Glenn, would you please clarify maybe I missed it in your explanation. It's not clear to me. What do you mean that the Black people were not established in these particular neighborhoods? And this is why they were so-called drowned out. What do you mean? Would you explain it?
As a whole, we were not established as a whole. The Irish and the Jews and all these people work as a whole to get themselves where they can be protected against assaults.
All right, that answer is unacceptable to me. It's as clear as mud. I don't understand what you mean by established.
You want to get on the list?
I guess yes.
Okay. Did I miss anybody that wanted to get on the list?
Amal has a hand up.
Okay.
And Rebecca.
Okay. Okay, Louise, you followed by Phyllis, Marion, Amal, and Rebecca.
Wait a minute, you totally left me out.
Oh,
I
okay.
have my name, I have my finger right ahead of everybody.
Nancy, I asked, did I miss anybody? Because I was with the questions. Glenn was with these long answers. I know I missed somebody. I asked politely, did I miss anybody? Okay, Nancy, you are behind Phyllis.
So I'm next. I thought Louise, wait, can
No,
you read the list?
Louise, Phyllis, Nancy, Marion, Amal, Rebecca.
Okay.
Okay, I apologize, Nancy.
You might want to close the list after Rebecca, given the time.
Okay.
I just want to add that America, as we know, was built on the sweat of enslaved Africans, but it's a bigger picture, which Glenn touched on. He said the cotton was sent to Europe. And yes, in fact, the Western world industrialization was built on the sweat of enslaved Africans. I mean, that is where it all started with the cotton industry. And that's when England grew and made, you know, their basically their world from that. And also, Glenn, you said that it didn't stop you from going to black businesses along the Claiborne underpass, but you said you would walk there, and then you said when integration happened, you went to the white businesses. So I'm wondering why you did that and not continue walking to try and save the black businesses or give them money. That was curious. I think that's all I've got to say for now.
Thank you, Louise. Phyllis, you have the floor. Next is Nancy, Marion, Amal, and the list is closed after Rebecca.
Okay. What was I going to say? Oh, to play off of what Beatrice said about the textile mills, I also read in the Clint Smith book that there were companies in the North that actually their business was to make clothing that was sent south for enslaved people to wear. So they were actually profiting off of slavery by creating the clothes that they were selling to the South to clothe slaves. I actually, in my mind, I don't know what I ever imagined where all the clothes came from that slave people wore. Like, was it hand-me-downs from white people? So that kind of was an eye-opening part of his book as well. And I think that is all I wanted to say right now. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Phyllis. We have Nancy is next, Marion, Amal, and Rebecca, and the list is closed. Nancy, you have the floor.
Okay, I just wanted to say that we have shown in these meetings that like Tulsa, Oklahoma, as an established Black area, a thriving Black area, that was bombed and then, razed completely. And then when it tried to come back, not as robustly as it did before because the residents were scattered, when they couldn't destroy it that way, they put a highway through it. There's only 3 streets that are left from the original 35 square blocks of Greenwood. There are 3 streets left: Greenwood, Archer, and Pine, which is what the Gap Band named themselves after. I mean, but Greenwood was the only city that was bombed, but there are many ways that anytime African American communities have come together to be self-contained, that the government has found a way to destroy it, disperse it, or do whatever they can to dismantle it. And also remember that we were always taught, like to integration. That was the thing, you know, to build yourself up so that you could assimilate into the white community. I mean, always, that's what busing was about. That's what housing was about. Everything was to assimilate into the white community. You know, as you just said, that's what you did when integration came about. You took off that. I mean, because that's what was implanted in your mind, that this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to aspire to be able to be part of the larger and dominant community. All right. Just like we were told that we were supposed to get an education. Okay. I'll finish in the wrap up, but I'll go on about education because all you ended up with was debt.
Thank you,
You're
Nancy.
still discriminated against with your master's degree.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. We have Marion, followed by Amo, and after Rebecca, we close the list.
I can't think of being more firmly established than having a building made out of stone or brick or whatever with a sign over the door saying L&W Cleaners or Walker's Market or Funland Toy Store. These were Black businesses that were along the South Claiborne corridor. So this still is a puzzlement to me by saying Black people were not established. If there's a structure standing there with these signs that I just mentioned, that's establishment. People going in and out, clerks at the cash registers, they're not the computerized mechanisms we have today, but people exchanging money across the counters because there's the buying and selling of goods. So I can't think of anything that's more firmly established than these Black businesses were along that North Claiborne corridor. And when the heavy machinery came along and the equipment to build that expressway, those businesses vanished. So I don't know how more established you could be. Flesh and blood people were, as I said, were exchanging money and selling goods. People were going in and out of these businesses. And I remember that vividly. And I did some research on why my uncle lived on Flood Street. And I'm not going to talk about that now, but there was a reason why that street was named Flood Street. Who said that?
It was Greer. I muted her.
Because I don't want to overstay my time.
Okay, thank you, Marion. We have Amal and Rebecca, and the list is closed. Amal, you have the floor. Mute yourself, Greer.
I did it. I did it.
Amal? Amal, are you with us? We're going to move on to Rebecca. And afterwards, we'll check back in with Amal. Rebecca, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, it does
Hello,
seem.
can you hear me?
Amal?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, okay, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. I don't know what happened with that, but anyway. So what I was going to say, it was in relation to something that Glenn talked about with the Irish and how, you know, once they got established, their mistreatment stopped. It wasn't their establishment that caused the mistreatment to stop. Is when the Irish, the Italians, and the Jews got boosted into white status that caused it to stop. Because before a certain point in time in the United States, they weren't considered white. In other words, they weren't white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. So when they got their boost into whiteness, that's when their mistreatment stopped. Because then that's it had to say I was Irish, Italian, or Jewish. So it had nothing to do, their mistreatment had nothing to do with how well established they were. The mistreatment stopped when they got boosted into white status. That's what happened. So and so you can't compare them to Black people because our situation was completely different from theirs. So and as it relates to the North thinking that they're somehow better than the South, we forget that the North had slavery as well. As a matter of fact, we were talking about Seneca Village, which is in New York. There was a large mass African grave that was found in New York. I can't remember how many years ago it was, but these were the people that they'd imported as slaves. These were so let's not talk about the North like the North is innocent in this whole thing as it relates to slavery. They didn't have it as long as the South, but nevertheless they did have it. So they're not innocent and they're not off the hook because it's New York or any of the other northern cities um, that that want to sit on their high horse like they had nothing to do with slavery. No, the United States, all of it, was involved, the North and the South. So none of them are innocent. But the Irish, like I said, it had nothing to do with how well established they were. Had everything to do with the fact that they got boosted into whiteness. That's what stopped their mistreatment.
Thank you, Amal. I like that statement, boosted into whiteness.
That's what happened.
Rebecca, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I think it's a policy that if you want to build a bridge or a classy apartment building to put it in an area where you can take the property from people without any or with less money, whether they're white or any other color. That does seem to be the buildings that are going up now around where I live have displaced people who had small homes or owned their own dwellings, and those people are of any color or any culture. But I also think that there seems to be well, you've talked about this very well, a thrust toward ruining Black businesses, that Black successful communities actually pulling the rug out from under them, and so that they can't thrive. And instead, we're promoting integration to a certain extent, where people can be saddled with a great deal of debt or can sort of join in an established white business. I do agree that the severity toward people of color is much more intentional than it is toward people who are white or who have joined the white community, like the Jews and Italians. Okay, I don't know how the Asians fit into this, but anyway, okay, thank you. Very interesting discussion.
Thank you,
Very sad.
Rebecca. Thank you. Now, we're going to start off with the wrap up. Anybody has not spoken? No, I don't think so. Okay. Phyllis?
I just want to say thanks for this and for the videos that went along with it. I shared another one of those in the chat. Start my time, sorry. The one about the Williams family legacy, I shared that in the chat for people to look at too. So I think this was a really good way to remember some history that we obviously were never taught in school, and also a good example of how we haven't really had critical race theory as part of our curriculum, because it's for law school, not for elementary school. I wish everyone would understand that. So thank you.
Nancy? Thank you, Phyllis. Nancy?
Yeah, I just wanted to also say that on that same trip to Central Park, we also went to Ellis Island too. And Ellis Island had gone through an extensive renovation to include the history of everyone who has come to this country, or however, I mean, they had a term for it, involuntary. That's what it was. Involuntary immigrants. That's what they how they referred to slaves as involuntary immigrants that came to this country. So they really did turn around how they presented people coming into this country. Also, I wanted to just piggyback on what Amal said. Also, Italians and Jewish people and Irish people were also able to anglicize themselves, all right, and change their names and that way blend in. African Americans, we cannot blend in. We can't do that. I don't care how much education you have, what many achievements you have, how many titles you have, you cannot blend in, cannot disguise yourself. Never, never, ever will be able to do that.
Thank you, Nancy. Kate?
Okay. I wanted to thank Marva for the topic. It was very enlightening to me. And I just wanted to say of the Seneca Village, it was really, really significant because in addition, by 1850, African-American Seneca villages were 39 times as likely to own property as other African-Americans in New York City. And in 1855, there were approximately 12,000 African-American New Yorkers. Of these, only 100 males could vote. 10 of them were located or lived in Seneca Village. Thanks again for the topic. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Kate. Pedro?
Yeah, I just wanted to remark, first of all, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the article. I think it's the indignity of a family's cemetery of predominantly, whether it's African Americans or other disenfranchised groups, is really almost irrelevant. It's the indignity of that action just is overwhelming to me. But I also wanted to comment, a number of comments have been made about the North. And I think at the end of the day, systemic racism, it's systemic because it is everywhere. And certainly you can highlight the South and their egregious actions. But when you get back to, in a capitalist system, the wealth inequality, the Boston Globe did an article back in 2015 where there was, and it spoke specifically to Boston, and the wealth inequality there was greater or equal to anywhere else in the country, which it still is today. So that's really I think we take our eye off the picture when we continue to not address and recognize the importance of wealth inequality and what creates it. And it's the systemic racism changing its methods over the different decades of the history of our country, from slavery to Jim Crow to modern day forms of discrimination. So that's all I wanted to add. Thank you for a very engaging conversation today.
Thank you. Rebecca?
Yes, this was a great topic and a really good discussion thoroughly about it. I wanted to mention one act of generosity because it's never mentioned, not because it's extremely significant, but the Unitarian Universalist Church in Tulsa about 20 years ago raised at least thousands of dollars, and it should be more than that, to give in restitution to the individuals who still survived the Tulsa incident. And it's never mentioned, but I know it's a small thing, hardly significant, but at least they noticed and they tried to do something about it. And I'm sad that it's never mentioned. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Marion?
Thank you, Marva. This was a very stimulating discussion and article. Very good history lesson, I think, too. Really enjoyed the discussion this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Louise? Louise?
Yeah, it's a. Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Okay. It was a great article, and I think it's just another chink in the way that you know, in the history that we do not know about, or not many people know about, and that should know about, and it is definitely obvious that Black, brown, and indigenous people have been kept down, purposely kept down through such things, by white supremacist policy, basically, and and people that don't understand that, they're just not understanding history, or there's something, it's kind of obvious that it's a purposeful act through all of these ways of keeping people down.
Thank you, Louise. Glenn?
Yeah, Louise asked a question. Why would I leave the black business and go and support the white business? Well, because I was socially ignorant of the effects economically I was doing to the community. And when you multiply that, my thinking, by millions and millions of other African Americans thinking the same way, and not really loving your own race, not really loving your own race. You say you hate the white man, what he was doing at the time, but you rather see him with your money than to see the black person. And that's what I was then. That's the kind of mind I had then. And and why you won't find anybody on this panel that will be as frank and as truthful as I am. Most of them waste their time using their intelligence to make the truth look like a lie. So when you hear me speak, you will hear someone just being honest and truthful of what the reality is. That's it.
I don't know whether to then thank you, Glenn, for that wrap up. Beatrice?
Yes, thank you for the article and for the conversation. Very stimulating and interesting, very informative. Just the trip down memory lane for me in terms of the building of that I-10 leadway. North Cleveland was so beautiful. That neutral ground was so beautiful. Those live oaks. I mean, that was Creole Carnival, African-American Carnival on that neutral ground, not to mention the businesses. So a lot was destroyed with that. And that entryway did not have to be built there, but that was a choice. That was a choice to destroy the African-American business area, to destroy the recreational space, to destroy the beauty of those trees that will never come back. So that, and don't forget, going on to something else, the prime lending, prime loan stuff, that destroyed a lot of the opportunity of generational wealth of African-American people in taking homes. So it goes on, and we just have to be cognizant and aware. And the whites who became white, as my mom was saying, then turned around and were against us, the Irish in New York. They were against African-American people. So it's a struggle. And like they say, our luta continua, the struggle continues in Portuguese. So thanks to everybody. It's just wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Francie?
I missed last week, but week Nancy had said something and I commented on it about the mental gymnastics each of you people of color, especially blacks, go through when you get into certain circumstances. You have to evaluate where you stand and who's going to potentially do harm or who's going to make negative comments or who might even do physical harm. And that made me realize that there's a lot of very brilliant, interesting Black people on television these days, on MSNBC and CNN and PBS, that heretofore haven't, you know, a lazy white person like me hasn't really been that aware of all the actual brilliance among Black people. And I was thinking about the old saw about Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire and how she did everything he did, but going backwards and in high heels. And I thought about all the Black people who've gone through life dodging nooses and bullets and being pulled over while driving, and what you've accomplished is pretty remarkable. I'm really newly impressed. I don't know where I've been except lazy. I'm pretty good at that, but I think there's a book there somewhere. Somebody really clever like Chappelle or Chris Rock or somebody could make some comparisons, I think. Anyway.
Thank
I
you.
also wanted to shout out to Pedro and Amal. I enjoyed the radio. That's it.
Thank you, Francie. Greer?
Well, this is just what happened in the past. It has morphed into the future. You got the redlining. They do what they do in Black neighborhoods. Why? Because they can get away with it. You always got a dump, a plant, a landfill, or anything negative that you want to do. You're going to do it in a Black neighborhood. Look at mass incarceration, the prison industrial complex. The key word is industry, because you've made Blackness a crime while screaming that there's no longer slavery in America, but Article 1 of the amendment that created freedom says you can criminalize me and use me as a slave. So you got prisoners being paid 10, 15 cent, 50 cent an hour doing textiles, computers, components to computers, picking produce. And that's all over the United States. It's not a North thing, it's not a South thing, it's a profit thing. And when MLK was talking with Lyndon Johnson about getting more people of color immigrated to the United States, it was ironic because Amal was talking about how Irish and Jews and whoever else were embraced into their whiteness when Egyptians were allowed to come to the United States. Though Egypt is in Africa, they're automatically classified as white. That's how the government manipulates things. There was a gentleman who was obviously of color. He had to fight to be called Black when he came to America. He had to go to court to fight the government. So America can twist what it wants to make you who it wants you to be. And in doing so, you turn around and you impose what was imposed on you on other people. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Greer. Amal? Calling Amal.
I'm here. Great article, great comments. But I'm not surprised as to what happened. I mean, this is the United States at its best, taking land and expanding on it for the interests of white people. So there's nothing to be surprised by here. They did it to us. They particularly did it to Native Americans, and you know, took Mexico, took California from Mexico. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I'm not surprised by this article, but it was a great article and great comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Amal. Instead of a wrap up, I'm going to shout out some history facts. Um, in 1912, Lake Lanier in Oscarville, Georgia, was uh, burnt to the ground in 1912. Thousands of residents fled uh, their homes after the accusation of two Black teenagers raping and killing a white woman. So they burned it to the ground, excavated, and formed a lake. And Lake Martin, um, Calaca, Alabama, destroyed a Black settlement to make way for Lake Martin. And Seneca Village, you know about Central Park, New York, from the discussion. Susanna, Alabama, also flooded by Lake Martin. More than 900 bodies was moved from the graveyard and then submerged with a man-made lake. I don't know how they located 900 bodies. I think they probably burnt them because where are you going to get land for 900 bodies to keep them together in that in the 18th century? Vanport, Oregon, the second largest city in Oregon during the 1940s to 1948. Uh, the Black migration from the South, they needed workers because of World War II, they were inducting more white people and factories needed help. But when the Black people, they only could settle in a designated Black area. But when that filled up, they spilled into the other communities. And the census was 40,000 in that area. And they had a massive flooding, man-made flooding, and 1/3 of that population of 40,000, 1/3 was Black families. That was in Vanport, Oregon. On the site of Vanport was built a national park with swimming and all of the amenities for you to enjoy yourself. But they weren't thinking about Black people at that time. Flooding seemed to be a way of change, not against the Black people, for the white privilege. There's more facts. Google drowned towns, and it was in the large area of the north and the scattered areas down south. So I mentioned Chalmette National Park, close to home. Thanks for the conversation and your input. I'll see you next week. Stay safe.
I'm going to stop the recording.